Like sometimes from the bedroom, I'll just hear, "For the Emperor!"
Do you think that Chairon is more believing towards Titus?
I think Chairon can see the picture much clearer. So I'm not having any of these second thoughts or these doubts.
Is there any moment in the game that you really feel is the most memorable?
I would say it's Chairon and Gadreel's relationship, because it was also one of the hardest things to perform. Ollie came up right in front of my face and he got real close, and then he pushed me to the ground and I got up, and then when I rose up I was like, okay, this is full rage, let's go.
Do you prefer Titus or Gadreel as a brethren?
I don't think I should answer that.
In this episode, I talked to Miles Yekinni, an actor based in London who plays Chairon in the recently released Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. He talks about the raid scene of Chairon, the relationship between his brethren, and his actual Christmas plans with the game. Before we jump into the conversation, make sure to hit subscribe because this channel is going to hit 10,000 subscribers thanks to you. So if you enjoy these episodes and if you like these episodes, consider subscribing because there's more coming from more awesome video games. And now it's time to talk to Miles.
No, it's a pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely great to be here and talk about Space Marines 2. It's been a long time coming.
It's incredible to see how far the game has come. A lot of people are enjoying this game, and this game has crossed 2 million sales worldwide. What do you feel when you hear that sentence?
Surreal at first, because you're just going, that's like 2 million people who've heard your voice and seen your work in their home, their place, you know, that is their place of comfort, their place that they go to. So mostly proud and also a bit shocked.
The game has great characters, it looks great, and has a great story as well. Are you yourself a Warhammer fan?
So at the beginning of this process, this was all NDA'd, so I didn't even know this was Warhammer. So auditioning for something that they couldn't tell me what it was about at all. And then when I found out it was Warhammer, full disclaimer, when I said I wasn't a fan before, I knew what Warhammer was. It's just I had never had an opportunity to dive into such a huge franchise and universes. And then it was only once doing this game and arriving on the first day of set being like, oh, this is Warhammer. And I was like, I'm going to need to do far more research like now, but there is never enough time to do research on Warhammer. There is just so much to learn and so much to dive in. So I have become a fan now, but I'm slowly getting into the world because I've spent years trying to craft this character. And the only way to do that is to, one, have a crash course of who they are, where they come from, and what they stand for. And then obviously Ollie, our producer and co-founder, creative director, he was always there to guide us, being like, nope, that's not going to work. No, that's not who they are. And finding that balance between being a space marine and still bringing nuance and light to the performance. And also knowing how the Warhammer family feel about it, and wanting to do them justice as well, and not just step in, create whatever deep voice I can and pretend to be macho. It's like there's much more than that. There's integrity to it as well.
It's amazing to see the suit in the game, but in reality, it's actually you being in the motion capture suit.
Yeah.
So how is that big motion capture suit like, and working in that suit like for you?
Yeah, so it was Ollie and John to give us like a better idea of what it's like to be in a Space Marine's body. We put on, so under our suits, we put on American football gear to have the big shoulder pads, and then made sure we had these solid big boots as well. And we spent a lot of time just walking as Space Marines and running as Space Marines and just standing as Space Marines and sitting as Space Marines. And so that sort of helped us really get into character. So we needed that extra armor and padding to feel like we were these characters. But you do have to use imagination, because if you ever catch yourself in the camera and you're like, I'm just in pajamas right now with lycra and stuff stuck to me.
It looks different, it looks weird at times, but at the same time, it is important because it takes the data from your suit and gives it to the animators and everybody who works from the team to make the game look beautiful. When you first saw yourself in the game, what was your initial impressions or your reaction like?
I tell you what, because we've been part of the process, I mean, I guess since 2020. So I already knew what my character looked like, or the character was being built up. And so every time we'd go in to do a session, we already had that knowledge. So I wasn't surprised when the game came out. It was far more detailed than I'd seen during rehearsals and during shooting. But I'd always been aware of what I looked like. And so I think the only difference is seeing all of the detail, the last detail and touches put onto the armor, the shadow, the sweat, the grease, all of that type of stuff. That was impressive to see. But it was exactly what I expected. I mean, the last thing you'd want is for it to show up in the game and go, wow, that's nothing like me at all.
I know we talked about the motion capture suit, and it's not really that big of an idea that people have, but if it at any point in time you had the idea of pitching this idea of what if you took the motion capture suit home, would that be something you'd be taking?
I mean, to take the suit home, I don't think that they'd let me take the football gear and the boots. I should definitely request the boots. There's some good quality boots, and I've spent the last 3-4 years in them. But the like suit, they definitely won't let me take home. In fact, they struggled to even find one that was my size. I'm 6'4", so it's just one of those cases like, okay, let's find the biggest one we can and make it work. Not as tall as Space Marines, but yeah, they did well to cast huge people.
But regardless if you get to take the motion capture suit or not, you got to work with two amazing actors, Arthur Lee, who plays Gadreel, and Clive Stanton, who played Titus. At any point in time, did you guys start calling yourself as brothers, brethren, or by your names?
Yeah. We stopped choosing each other's real names after a while. It was just Gadreel. So yeah, that was pretty much it. But I think that's a really nice way of working when you're doing a project like this, is that you can, especially if you have a good working relationship with these guys, of Clive and Arthur, is that you can switch out these names and you can call each other by your character name so that it doesn't feel unnatural when you're shooting. In fact, when you're calling out the names, it's instinctual to call out Gadreel's name instead. So we did get close, which was nice. But because sometimes filming was sporadic, we might film and then be on a 3-month break sometimes. And that's the nature of creating a game, is that you create it in sections. It's like then we'd see each other after a long time and go, "Oh my God, it's you!"
Gadreel.
It was always nice to be back in each other's company and kind of catch up with each other.
The relationship between all three guys are lovely, and I gotta say that Gadreel has the most doubts on Titus. He's always complaining or always has something in mind to say, whereas Chairon does not have much. Do you think that Chairon is more on the neutral side or more believing towards Titus?
Gadreel is, because he's come from it's difficult for him because he's essentially, his job was replaced by Titus. And so he's going from, a leader, captain, to not being that anymore. And that's what Gadreel knows best. And so he's in a very difficult position of watching Titus and going, can I do that better? Is this how I would have done it? I would have done it like this. This mission would have gone this way. And I've never struggled with that position because my position hasn't been usurped. I'm doing my job as a Space Marine, and that's exactly, so I'm not having any of these second thoughts or these doubts. And I think Chairon can see the picture much clearer. And he's also had this past experience as well that allows him to just step back and not be so close to the situation. Obviously, until he is very close to the situation and we realize that Chairon is just like the rest of them.
One of the most interesting things of the game is when everybody's playing the game, regardless of what character is in the game, whether it's a playable character or not, all of them say, "For the Emperor." Was there any point in time where "For the Emperor" was used in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, loads in my house. Like, because my wife Rebecca, she would hear me rehearsals and practicing. Like, sometimes from the bedroom, I'll just hear "For the Emperor" from her voice, and I'm like, and so that's always a thing in my household now. Or brother. Um, uh, and so yeah, that's something that's constantly followed me around whilst rehearsing. But that's the nature of the job as well. Whatever you're doing at that moment, you kind of dive into it and you allow it to take over your life for that period of time. But it was funny in rehearsals, kind of understanding what "For the Emperor" is and was, was a journey in itself, and having pride. So every time it was a form of communication, knowing that we were all on the same page and we were all fighting for the same thing.
We touched upon this earlier, that Chairon has that moment and the moment of rage. And when that happens, it is truly iconic. A lot of people call this as one of the best moments of the game. How do you match that intensity that you need to bring for Chairon?
I tell you what, that is, I have to give credit to Oliver, creative director, and obviously John as well, cinematography director, or cinematic director, because they pushed me to that place. Don't get me wrong, I have a lot of anger in me. So Warhammer was a great job to get some of that out. But I remember Ollie trying to get rage out of me, and sometimes he'll put an image in my head. He'll go, "Miles, we need you to go Angel of Death, full Angel of Death." And I'd understand what that meant. And so it means that I just let go of all the chains and we're going 100% rage. And then those other times it'd be like, "Okay, we need you 90% rage." And there was one time I was actually shocked because I couldn't believe what happened. I wasn't reaching it. So Ollie came up right in front of my face and he got real close and he was egging me on. And then he pushed me to the ground and I got up. And then when I rose up, I was like, "Okay, this is full rage. Let's go." So it got very, very method at one point. But yeah, those were on the days where Angel of Death, just saying that word and what that meant, I couldn't reach it then. Then Ollie would step in and he'd push me to the edge.
Wow.
And then, yeah, that's how that scene came about.
With that moment, I thought that Chairon was the best character in the game because he did such a great job handling all of it by himself and not needing any help because he doesn't have support yet. Is there any moment in the game that you really feel is the most memorable or something that is still with you after you recorded the whole thing?
I would say it's Chairon and Gadreel's relationship, even in the beginning, where he's teasing Gadreel a lot about losing his station. And because it was also one of the hardest things to perform, because of these Space Marines don't really do outright jokes. It was finding that balance and being able to, take the mick out of Gadreel and let it just sit and seethe with him and walk away. So I would say those are my favorite moments. Besides full rage, those are my favorite moments where I get to be the comedy of the piece, or the satire of the piece, and I get to really enjoy the scenes, and the audience can enjoy that with me. And which also makes Gadreel a really nice character as well, because you get to see things from his side. And just it's fortunate that I got to read some of the comments on Twitter, or X, just being how people feel about Gadreel's character as well, because it's such a hard role to play, and Arthur does a great job. But yeah, those moments and those relationships were probably the most fun during the process.
I really do like the dynamic with all these characters, and story is really cool. And I sometimes do get a little bit annoyed that Gadreel is, complaining a lot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when we see the game, it's so beautiful, looks so gorgeous, and the detail is so enormous. But at if any point in time, let's say in an imaginary world, there was a real set for Warhammer 40k, would there be certain things that you would be taking back home with you other than the obvious?
Ooh. I mean, when you say apart from the obvious, I don't know if my jetpack and my bolter is part of the obvious. Those two, I would take. If it was set in the real world, I think I'll be good. I'll be able to roam the planets just with a bolter in my hand and jetpack everywhere. Just as Miles, not even as Chairon, just like I'm good. They'd see you flying around with a huge ass bolter. Yeah, I think respect would come.
I totally understand. There will be a lot of respect, but with the game, have you ever actually tried yourself to play that game and see how it like to be in that world?
Yeah, so I've only played campaign mode, so I haven't player versus player. I wouldn't dare. Could you imagine people just whooping the real life Chiron? And I don't know how I would show my face in public, so I haven't yet stepped into that arena. When I do, I will be hiding my username 100%. Until I have a good rank, I'll be like, okay, this is me. I'm the best fighter here, clearly. But I just know that there will be players out there who would hunt me down, and I will not give them that pleasure.
Wow.
So only campaign mode. I'm waiting till Christmas, to be honest, where I can have some time off finally, and I'm just going to spend a week in the dark fighting for the Emperor.
That is amazing that you have so much love for Warhammer now that you're playing it. I gotta ask, is there any other game that you have played before or you still play right now?
Oh, so yes, you guys are going to get secrets about me. Okay. Essentially, I have to control how much gaming I play. I've got a very addictive personality. So when I say I'm going to spend a week in the dark playing Warhammer, it's not because I want to, it's because that's the addiction. It's me having to get through it a whole week undisturbed. And so I used to play games loads when I was growing up, from Bloody Roar to all the Tekkens to, some driving games, shooting games, all of this type of stuff. But I just play it to the nth degree. I'd start at 10 a.m. in the morning and I'd wonder why it's dark again and it's 2 a.m. in the morning and out, and then I'd stop. I'd go to sleep for 4 hours. I'd wake up, have water, and then I'd just jump back on it. I had an intense stint of playing like World of Warcraft. And I knew I had to stop when my team member, when we were going on a raid, was like, "Oh, I've got to go to school. I'm starting year 7. I went, "Okay, I need to stop playing." I'm like, I think I was like, what, 20, 23 then? I was like, yeah, I need to stop playing if my counterparts are going to secondary school. Wow. Yeah. And so I stopped playing games for a while. And so it's like Warhammer's pulled me back in. Another game I did as well has pulled me, a driving game has pulled me back in. So if I'm in it, I'm playing it. And then I'll allow myself to play at like friends' houses. Whenever I go to my friend's house and they're playing a game, Mario or Tekken or whatever it is, I'll jump in. But I can't play for too long. The itch comes back and I'm like, I'll lose everything. And I found myself, again, I would say this is a secret between us, but it's not. It's also your followers. But there was one morning I was playing and I was late for work. And then I was like, I've got a choice to make now. I can be late for work or I can be ill.
Best choices.
And so I was ill as I made my way through the Autark Valleys, leveling up my character. So I try not to go back there. I got a bit more responsibility now.
Being ill always works. It's the best advice and it still works to this day. But the other game that I wanted to talk about is the game that you worked on was Grid Legends, and you played Marcus Ado. Such a great game, such a great story, and it was done like a TV show. There was a point in the story where, Seneca Racing is having a turning point. They didn't start that well, but they had that turning point where they scored a win eventually and they were celebrating. Was there a turning point in your life that changed the course of your life?
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big one. Yes, there has been a major turning point in my life. I think it was after it was 2012. I won't give you the whole story. You guys, I'll be in a book somewhere later on down the line. But it was 2012. Is in the UK. It was the coldest winter in a long time. It has snowed. I just remember walking in the snow with one shoe on, because I had lost my other shoe due to some circumstances, and I was just like, this cannot be my life. And as I was walking, one foot in the snow, one foot in my shoes at the time, I was just like, okay, there needs to be a change of some sort. And then from that point on, I started to change the way I saw the world, what I appreciated. A huge part of that was also me refinding my religion as well. So me refinding Islam gave me a bit more guidelines, and a bit more of it's funny, it's a bit like Warhammer is like something to fight for, and integrity, and something that the rules that you don't break. So from that point on, I started to just be more of myself and not find myself in rooms that I didn't want to be in anymore. So that as an actor, people will be like, networking is part of the job. Actually, I was very good at networking, but I loathed it. You become someone that you're not technically, you find yourself laughing at jokes that aren't funny. And you go, what am I doing? And talking about things that you either have no interest in or you're not sharing your true opinion. So I stopped partaking in any like drinks, anything like that. I stopped being in rooms that either didn't appreciate me or I didn't want to be in anymore. And I found that my life drastically changed. I was only doing things I was having fun doing. When people would speak to me, they would already respect me because of how I held myself and what my principles were. And there would never be a situation where they would try and challenge it because it just didn't make sense. I never gave them that space to. On that journey, I grew a lot. And don't get me wrong, there were points where, you slip, you fall down, but then you also learn from that. And there's an amazing thing about, and I'm sure some of your followers as well would know, is that whenever you don't drink or you give up drinking, every single one of those choices you make are yours.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. And so you can look at them and go, wow, that's really who I am. That wasn't the 3 pints of beer or the cocktail here. No, that's actually you. And you can address those situations and you can go, okay, this is who you are. Let's change that. Or if you do something great, you're like, this is who I am. Let's celebrate that. And so, yeah, I just distinctly remember 2012, winter, walking around London with one shoe, being like, I've got to change this.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's awesome to see how much you've changed, and changed for the better, because as you mentioned, it was more relatable when you talked about how you're laughing at things that you don't really find funny, and you're conversing because you just have to converse, or you find an opportunity. And it just doesn't work that way, and you gotta change. And I'm happy that you did, because a lot of people do not take that step, do not take that idea and move forward with it.
Yeah, or there might be an opportunity here when the truth is you might not want that opportunity to come from that situation. Otherwise, you built the relationship with weak foundations as opposed to stronger foundations, and then you can have more of a friendship there and get to know each other even more, with respect being those foundations.
It is actually very much similar to how Grid Legends is at the same time, because Marcus Ito is not having a great life, and how his team Seneca Racing is going, and it's going downhill. But it goes up, and then there have been ups and downs throughout the journey. How is it like playing Marcus Ito in a game like Grid Legends, which is so different, and because you shot it like in real life in a way, and it was done in a very movie TV series production style?
That was also a crash course because I'd never watched, I've never been a fan of racing. I am now. I'm a huge fan of Formula One. I know it's a different type of racing series, yes, but what we were told as an inspiration was have a look at Drive to Survive. Have a look at the kind of the team principles, the journey, what it means to everybody. And so I started watching Drive to Survive as research, because it was the closest, semi closest thing to what we were trying to achieve. And then just looking at the teams in Formula One that were performing at the bottom of the grid. And there's a great story of Brawn GP, who were the underdogs. I believe it was in 2009, and they came from bottom of the grid all the way to winning at the top, winning the championship that year. And understanding that journey of everyone doubting you, and you're being the youngest team principal that's ever been around. So you're already the underdog. No one believes in you, but you believe in you. And so there was some similarities, obviously, in my own life that I was like, this makes complete sense. I am my biggest fan. Marcus Ado needs to be his biggest fan as well. And so that was a great character to play. And the team camaraderie as well, and that was just awesome. Natsumi, we're still really good friends as well. So that was a beautiful experience, and to do it in real life as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the Lycra suits; they're great, but to get all those different clothings that Marcus Ado got to wear, I've still got his coat as well. They gave that to me. I'm very happy. Sweet stuff. But being in his shoes and working towards underdog to being a winner, we actually celebrated that.
Oh, wow.
That actually happened. And that we weren't in a Lycra suit. We didn't have to imagine where we were because we had these huge screens. It was like this massive dome where they would, these LED lights that would bring up the background. So it felt like we were actually there. And then they made an incredible set.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that's how it was done, because I assumed, looking at how it was, that it might be green screen.
Yeah, it wasn't a green screen. No, it was all there. So it was as if it was a film playing behind us of the set. And so we felt like we were there. They would build the immediate set, and then around us were these 3 enormous dome screens that would have the actual set there and would move if need be, and just the sun will go up and down, whatever it was that we needed. So we never had to imagine it. And I think I've only done green screen once or twice. It's difficult.
Absolutely.
It is.
So with you being a part of Grid Legends and Warhammer 40k Space Marines 2, is there any game that you would love to be a part of?
This is also a shout out, come hire me, guys, because I was also a fan. Like when I was younger, I would still say I would love to be part of the World of Warcraft universe, or World of Warcraft world. I would love a character after myself in World of Warcraft. I think it's taken up so many years of my life. I'm like, I need something back from you guys. I need to be paid back now. That's the most immediate one. I know there's also Call of Duty, but that would just be for fun characters to play. Definitely Call of Duty for fun characters. I never had fast enough internet to play Call of Duty. So I was always that character lagging in the corner, running into the wall, and people would stand there around. They'd shoot me, wait till I spawned. So I just stopped playing Call of Duty. I was like, until I can get fast enough broadband, I have no business being in Call of Duty.
I totally understand, because I had the same exact issue where my internet was so bad that I was lagging so much, and I thought, like, I'm not playing Call of Duty this way. This is not happening. 88 Jirayu Garden, what has been your favorite chapter from the game, a favorite moment from the game overall?
So there's a scene between Titus, Gadreel, and Chairon where Gadreel is literally fighting Titus, knows the mark of chaos, and is the only one who can kind of bring light to the situation. There was, and obviously that's going to be leading up to the big rage, but that for me was probably my favorite chapter in it. Purely because I go from just being this third wheel character to then going, oh, this person has knowledge and insight.
Next question is from MacGyver. He actually has two questions. The first one is, did your voice get tired after recording the full rage mode lines?
Oh my God, we had to take breaks. Again, Ollie and John had to be like, Miles, I need you to calm your voice, because that's the reason why we can't just film non-stop. This is a big, big job. So I'd be on like miracle juice and tea in my flask, just on the side. It was like the most unspace marine-like thing, just running off set and just going, and then coming back on, and then trying to find the rage again. So yeah, my voice was tired. It felt like it was a full day's work, but it felt like a full week's work for my voice.
I cannot imagine how tiring it must be. And it makes sense to take breaks after that because it is a tough process to go through all that. The second question from Mech is, so Battlegrunts, do you actually move around or are you still standing still in a booth?
No, we move around because the way the voice reverberates in your body and your ribs, it's important. Now, there's a balance. One time I moved around too much and like, Miles, we didn't get that because your face wasn't facing the microphone. But actually, you are allowed to move around, to jump around if need be, to work that energy up from your knees through your gut, and then bring the voice out. And then so I would push it as far as I can, and then someone would rein me in.
Branton asks, do you prefer Titus or Gadreel as a brethren?
I don't think I should answer that. Oh, that's tricky. I would say, and this is going to sound diplomatic, but at different stages of the campaign, the main story mode, I fluctuate from liking Gadreel, then liking Titus more because he understands me, and then liking Gadreel again. And so, yeah, the Chairon, I say he flips between each one. And then, yeah, that's the answer I'm giving you. I'm not falling into this trap.
Backseat Commentator has three different questions. The first one, were you offered any lore behind your character or the setting before stepping in the room?
Always. Not before the job. I had no idea. Well, like I said, I had no idea what it was. But before we would do any scene, Ollie would sit us down and he would explain to us the lore, the world, the story. And sometimes there were a crash course, but then we'd also get a pack that we could read and research. And we weren't given everything all at once because I say as actors and as a process, you don't overload yourself like that. You just hold the information you need to hold. Like, this is the situation. This is the backstory. This is what you most hold dear. Now go and fight.
The second question of Backseat is, are there any scenes that you recorded that were ultimately cut from the game?
No. So, in fact, we had to do more sometimes. So the nature of the way games are made is that we make them in slices and in levels. And they're not always in the same or like chronological order. And so everything needs to be signed off so that, we're not going to be wasting our time filming something that won't make it in there. We very much so film everything. Now, there may be angles that aren't used, but every single scene that we filmed was definitely in there.
It makes sense that these scenes will be there, but having different camera angles, that'd be nice to see. And having to see some behind-the-scene moments, that would be cool as well.
There was a lot of corpsing at one point where we just couldn't stop laughing. And I was like, guys, we need to get this. Just stop laughing. Let's go.
Is there a specific someone from the team that will make you break every time or make you laugh?
Unfortunately, myself. I'm my own worst enemy, because if I'm like, let me try and make someone else break, and then I laugh myself. And then sometimes, Ollie would be looking at me and I'd be looking back at him, and I think he's thinking something, and I'd break and a corpse, and it'd be the most beautiful moment. And I'd just be like, please tell me you got it before I laughed. Tell me you got it.
Backseat has the last question. How long was the auditioning process between the first call and the confirmation for the role?
The audition itself was really intense, and especially because it was during 2020 time, so everyone was still in their house. So, I mean, I have a really decent setup in the house, so it was more so. But even though I had a decent setup, you couldn't be prepared for this audition, first of all. So, camera and the screen is pretty far back. You had to use your whole living room. And Ollie and John are great in the sense that it was all about, can you be the character? Bearing in mind, it was NDA'd, so they couldn't tell us what it is. He had to make up this alternate story, being like, you're this ancient warrior, and you're running into battle, and I'd have to run into battle. And there were the lines that they gave us as well. And then we had to run up to a hill and jump off of it, all this. So kind of when I know what I've done now, I can go, okay, I can piece it together. I know what's happening. But in the moment, and there was a moment where we had to just do pure rage in the audition as well.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine all my neighbors just going, what's going on? But it was an intense audition process, and it was quite long in the sense that working the physicality as well, because you can't fake the physicality sometimes. It's something it needs to be part of you already, essentially. So yeah, the audition was long, but the beginning to end process wasn't. And also, you need to find the right trio. You need to find the right people that are going to work together as well. So although Ollie may have known it was going to be me playing Chairon, we didn't know whether I would fit with Gadreel and Titus, who'd already been cast.
It's incredible to know that you also had the anger scenes is done as audition as well, and makes sense that now you're part of the game, and it's really cool. And there's so many amazing moments. You've done such a great job playing Chairon. Is there any message that you would like to give to the fans who are playing this game?
More so a thank you, because for the team, I can only speak for the team so much, but for the team and myself, there's a huge amount of pressure that went into getting this right. And I know that there was a delay in bringing the game out, and I'm not sure whether I can say this or not, but that delay was because of we have so much love for this project and for you guys and for everybody who's given even just a portion of their life for 40K, for Warhammer, that we wanted it to be right. We knew that if we put out something that was half-baked after 13 years, something hiatus from the first game, it'd be unforgivable. And so thank you for giving us the time to build something that we can all be proud of. Thank you for diving into the game and enjoying it. And even if there are little things here and there, like, the developers are great. There's a space in a forum where you can give suggestions. And I think the team is always open to suggestions of how we can make it better. What is the next stage? What do we introduce next? So I just, big love, mad love for the community that I am now a part of. And yeah, for the Emperor.
For the Emperor, yes.